Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. I am thrilled to have back Doug Dane. Doug, welcome back.
Hey, I'm happy to be back. Thank you.
So Doug is a survivor who has risen above a past filled with kidnapping, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse and violence to experience a life of freedom, gratitude, thriving relationships, and abundance. Now acting as an international keynote speaker and mindset mentor, he's turned his personal experience into a duplicable system to help people discover their true identity and live a life free of guilt or shame, outlined extensively in his debut novel, Mistaken Identity, a guide to letting go of a past that's holding you back. With his firsthand experience in tow, he's on a mission to guide those struggling to overcome a troublesome past, brighter future for themselves, to create a brighter future for themselves, their families, and the world. Awesome. Doug, before we get going again, remind our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in a city just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Spent most of my life there, and now I divide my time. I'm in New York right now. I divide my time between Manhattan and Toronto.
So, look, I'm going to say this up front. I don't say this a lot, but and it's kind of crazy to say this, but this book and your interview changed my life.
I appreciate that.
It sounds cliche to say it. And I'm not just saying it, but it did. And it has to do with the whole constellation of you and your presence and your message and your book. So before we can move on here, give those listeners who maybe haven't listened to the first episode, give us a thumbnail of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah. Would you want to go from the beginning or where I am now? I'll go now. I mean, today, obviously, with the book, I spent a number of years assembling a process, primarily for me originally, to finally let go of a terrible past and all the junk that goes along with it. I was on a pursuit to find a way to show others how they could let go of their past, because I went public with my story in 2001 in the newspapers and on television. And that was a big release for sure. But there was still some things missing. There was how I felt about myself and still stories I was playing. And people were coming to me because I was successful on the outside. I looked successful. I was doing fairly well. And people would come to me with a similar story or just a regular story, but similar feelings of guilt, shame, resentment, anger, whatever. And they go, how did you do it, Doug? Like, how did you let go of that story? Because it's a very dark, violent story, as you can just address from the intro or the bio. And I had blocked this story out up until I was 40 years old. And the story was, started adopted infant into a violent alcoholic home. Parents were violent towards each other, violent towards their children, obviously struggled witnessing violence and experiencing emotional and physical trauma. Left that literally by running away from home and then get hooked up with a ring of pedophiles for 2 years, sexually abused for 2 years. That ends in my kidnapping. And then I turned to coping, drugs and alcohol abuse. And then just, self-loathing and shame and guilt and all these negative feelings for so long. And I didn't know why I felt that way until I was 40 and I went for counseling because my marriage had failed or I had wrecked it. And then that the story came out, and then that explained a lot. So I'm just trying to show people how, if you went through something like me, as extreme as me, or worse, or less, or, it's all relative, and you're still feeling these negative feelings towards your story, towards the people that hurt you, towards the mistakes that you made, I want to just show people how to let all that go, because you can. People should not have to struggle with their past like they are.
I think a common response to what you just said, and I think a lot of people are listening to you and shaking their heads, going, "Yeah, of course I hate the person who did this to me," or "Of course I feel shame." And then to hear you say you can get over it, I think a lot of people, how the hell do you get over it? How do you let go? What do you mean let go?
Well, I told myself, rather, I was told the same thing. Just let it go, Doug. One of the chapters in the book is called Let It Go. And I was told by one of my mentors, just let it go, Doug, let it go. And I go, it's not that simple. He goes, yes, it is. You're making it complicated. I didn't know how to let it go. I didn't even understand the concept of what it would take to let it go. And for sure, when you're feeling the way I was feeling, or maybe the way you're feeling, it would appear very hard, a lot of work, a lot of pain. A lot of work and a lot of pain came from me dragging it out for so long when I could have let it go way sooner.
All right. So let's talk about this. You said before we started recording that you wanted to share this process of maybe people aren't aware of what?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that I learned along the way. So, like, I have no education, I have no degrees, but I have a high degree of experience from what I endured and what I survived and what I now thrive in from where I came from. And there's a lot of things I just didn't know. Number one is I didn't really understand anything really about emotional well-being, right? And I went down the traditional route, counseling and therapy. I didn't get into pills or any of that stuff. I certainly struggled with, booze and alcohol and coping mechanisms earlier on. But I didn't really understand how my emotions and my subconscious mind actually worked, and how it was actually what was ruling me and ruling my attitude towards me, towards my story and the other people, and directing my behavior. I also did not know that I knew nothing about, I'd heard the term mindset. Everybody throws the word mindset around. Somebody asked me the other day, they said they want to work on their mindset. I said, you don't have to work on your mindset. Your mind is actually perfect. What you need to work on is understanding how your mind works and use it properly. Well, I didn't know that either, that my mind directs my brain and nervous system. This morning, I was thinking about this interview. I was thinking, I would be so bold as to say that I have the cure for anxiety and depression, because I did not know that my brain and nervous system was controlling all that, my physical state. And I had no idea that my mind was directing my brain and my nervous system. And then I think our culture and our society and the whole road that we went down in psychology, post-war, I think it's just contributed more to our confusion. Now, don't get me wrong. I went through counseling and therapy. It was very effective and very useful. But we just kind of going down a path that we think this is the way to deal with our situation. And what I learned to do is I just look at my story with good. I look at, there has to be good. Okay. If there's something bad, there has to be good. And so I started to look at, okay, what is the good in the story? I also learned that what people do, their behaviors and how they treat people, generally it's learned. I could have become an abuser. I could have become an alcoholic like my father. I did become a philanderer. So there was part of that conditioning I picked up that I had to rid myself of. But I just decided to change my view on the story, because I realized the story, what happened to me wasn't about me. And that's where we get stuck. We think that it's something to do with us. And that's why we feel lousy about ourselves, because of what happened to us. So I realized that didn't happen because of me. It could have happened to any boy. I mean, I got adopted as a baby. You could have landed in that family, and you could be talking the way I'm talking, right? Or gone through what I had gone through. And so I realized, okay, it has nothing to do with me. So that was the first step. And the second step, by doing that, I was able to not take it so personally and to be more objective about what happened, like, to me, actually. And I carried a victim mentality for many years. But that the truth is, I'm not a victim, and I haven't been a victim in a long, long time. Maybe I'd say up till 17 or 18. I mean, 15, the sexual abuse ended, kidnapping, and then alcohol and drug abuse. And people, because I was naive and I was untrusting. I got into business with a couple of people. I got into a relationship with a couple of people. They were just bad people. I made bad choices. And I probably got victimized a little bit that way. But beyond that, from then on, when I was looking at my history, I go, I'm no longer a victim. I'm alive. I'm here. I get up every day. I do good work. I help people. I have a decent life. And I just changed my view on everything. And as soon as I changed my view on it, then because your thoughts control your emotions.
Right.
So if I change my thinking, if I don't like how I feel, and I don't like what I'm doing, all I got to do is just change what I'm thinking. And that changes how I feel, and that changes what I do. And then from there, I just became calmer, more relaxed, more confident. The anxiety and depression fell away, the second guessing, the loathing and shame, like, gone.
Let me interrupt you for a second here. So first of all, who or what, and maybe this was a succession of events, but who was it that inspired you to, Doug, change this? Was it a letting go? What was it?
Yeah. I think, first off, there was accumulation throughout my life where, and I just intuitively, I felt like I was off track, but I also felt like things were off track. But I've been second guessing myself for so long that I thought it must be me. And then, of course, because I was analytical and I was able to analyze and be objective about all the mistakes I was making, because I was a pretty smart guy in spite of my education or lack of. And so as a businessman being successful, and people saying I was intelligent and they were following me, I go, this is not intelligent action. Mm-hmm. So that was the beginning to question all the mistakes I was making. But then what the hardest part was, the relationship side, because where I came from, I wanted to be in a relationship because I felt I needed it to be okay. And I wasn't okay. And I kept wrecking them. And then my second marriage falls apart. I go to counseling, and the counselor starts asking me some questions about my history, and I couldn't answer them. And she suggested, maybe there's abuse in your background. I go, there's no abuse in my background. I mean, my parents drank. There was no abuse. Even in the counseling, when the abuse came out, so I put this story together. I hired investigators, met police detectives and teachers and family friends, all put this whole story together that I went public with. When I had the story in my hands, it's like grabbing a autobiography, and you really go, well, no wonder I was doing what I was doing and feeling like I was feeling. So that was a real turning point. And that counselor, she got me to really learn the art of not taking things personally. She made me read the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. She said, if you want to work with me, you got to study this book. And so I just really latched on to that. Don't take things personally. So that was a huge turning point. And then, I got better. I got better in life and better relationships. But when I thought I had it all licked and I thought I had it all together, I kept failing in relationships even more. And then about 9 years ago, when I was really at my lowest point, I met my last mentor. He passed away about a year ago. And he taught me, I learned from him this idea of how mindset actually works, how my mind directs my brain and nervous system, and the relationship of the unconscious and the subconscious. And what runs this machine is your self-image. your subconscious, the image you hold of yourself, that runs the show. It runs what you do. It runs what you believe. It runs your value system. It runs everything. Your self-image is running the show. And I had a poor self-image. I had a mistaken identity. I was mistaken about who I was because of who I had become, because of what I went through. So those were really the two turning points. And then writing this book, I mean, that was a breakthrough for me because I was afraid to write the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are people going to think? Am I on the right track? I mean, I talked to thousands of people. I knew I was on the right track, but to put in a book and like go public and come on, great shows like this and try to convince people of what I now know. So those were probably the three key turning points.
So this idea of our self-image that's run by our subconscious, how do we take stock of that? Number one, how do we look at that? And if we need to change that, because I'm thinking to myself, I have a lot of limiting beliefs.
Right.
But how would you advise or suggest that people begin to take stock of that?
Well, I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, how are you feeling in your life and about your life? Are you content? Are you happy? Or are you doing what you enjoy doing? For the most part, is life fairly simple for you, or are you really struggling and life is hard and complicated and you'll have all these negative emotions? You got to take stock first and be really honest with yourself. And then we just have to understand, and I didn't understand it, but quite simply, you can learn how there's two parts to your mind, basically, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is basically where all the programming got dumped into. When you were little, you didn't really have the ability to think. And when you did think, and spoke up or challenged the adults or anything like that, you got in trouble. And you just had all these rules, values, beliefs, biases, prejudice, religion, food taste, everything just dumped into you. And you, like your subconscious, just accepts it. And it's your subconscious mind that actually dictates how this thing feels. So those times when you're feeling anxious, it's because you're likely worried about the future. Those days where you're feeling down and depressed and frustrated, it's likely because you're focusing on the past. And we just have to understand how the subconscious works. And it's not really complicated. I thought it was complicated. I explain it in my book. I have put parts in here to simply understand, okay, how does the mindset work? There's great books you can read. I mean, one of the best would be Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, like the best book published in 1960, still the best book today that explains self-image and this automatic mechanism he called our mind. And so all you got to do is you just have to take a look at how you're feeling and how you're operating. Mm-hmm. If you're making mistakes or you feel like, there's something wrong with you, then something happened that was wrong. You believe something that's wrong, and you're not able to be yourself because you're heavily influenced by others. You're worried what people think, and there's a huge pressure for conformity. And even when you, like me, I wanted to bust out with this book, it took me a while to muster up the courage to be myself and say what it is I want to say. And that can be hard when, in my case, for almost 50 plus years, I was really living with a fear of what other people would think. And so it's hard, but I think it's worse being an imposter and covering up your true self. I think that's what's making you feel so lousy, because you're not able to be yourself. Well, you are able. You're just afraid to be yourself because you think there's these implications that are negative when in fact they're all positive. Because if you can be yourself, then everything gets easy.
So I think a lot of people are listening and really identifying because in part, we're talking about the human condition, right? A lot of us feel ashamed about what's happened, but maybe we haven't even really, like you're suggesting here, taken the time to really think about. A lot of us don't even just take the time to sit and think, how am I feeling, right? To do that baseline analysis.
I don't think it's the human condition. I think it's the human conditioning.
Human conditioning.
Our struggle. Listen, we are human. There is a struggle as a human. Life, poses lots of challenges. But you're right. I think more so than ever before, I think we just go through our days just tiptoeing through life, just trying to make it safely to death. We don't question things. We just, like in my case, I just been feeling this way for so long. I thought this was normal, but I felt abnormal. It was weird, right? You felt off, but you thought this must be it. I never questioned any of this until I started questioning others that knew something I did not know that could explain why I was doing what I was doing and how I was feeling. But you're right. And listen, not everybody listening here wants to wake up and improve their life. There's nothing wrong with the comfort zone. If you're struggling and you're suffering and anything, I don't judge anybody for that. That's just a choice. But if you are struggling and you are suffering and you don't want to any longer, you probably do need to stop and think and ask some questions and get some of the right information. And out there today, it's information overload. You just don't quite know which way to go, who to talk to. I think you should find somebody that's getting the results that you're getting, that has a relatable story to yours, and find out if they really are truly on track or on the track you want to be on, and follow them and speak to them and let them help you. Like if anybody's been through trauma or abuse and you're struggling and suffering, I am an expert at this because I am free. And I would be a good guy to follow. You're leading all kinds of people in the therapy and trauma. You have to call the trauma therapist. You're helping all these people that are helping other people. You're an authority. You'd be a good guy to go talk to, but that's not what we do. We get on our phones or we ask the opinion of our family and friends because we're afraid of what other people think. And we're just trying to validate if we're on the right track. So we won't actually go to an authority. We go to somebody we trust that has no authority or experience. And their view, unfortunately, is distorted on you because their filter or their mistaken identity has a skewed vision of you. And so their advice is going to be skewed. Like if I want to learn to be a plumber, I should go talk to a plumber.
Right. Let me ask you something. So when you started to do that, when you started to kind of take stock and, ask yourself, how am I feeling, and begin to look at your subconscious, how did you start to feel as a result? What did you do immediately after that? And how did it make you feel?
Yeah. So I think a very important step for a lot of people, if you feel the pull to it, I think it's probably a good idea to put your story together to some degree. You don't have to dig into the past and dredge it all up, but it would be good to have some facts and information that explain why you're at what you're at and doing what you're doing and feeling how you're feeling. So I had a very good explanation when I had the story put together. So that series of facts that I blocked out explained why I was doing what I was doing and feeling the way I was feeling. So when I went public, like literally the shame and the self-loathing, it fell away literally in a matter of a few weeks. It was like, it was gone. So I think that is a good step. And then I think another step would be to, I think you have to take stock of your beliefs. Just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true. Like a very silly one, a very common one when we were young, go to school and get an education so you can get a good job. Well, that's not true. It might be true for some, but it's not necessarily true for all. That's a silly example, but we have these beliefs, and we have to understand it's our beliefs that drive our behavior. And so if you don't like your actions and your results, it's because of your beliefs. So, and that's what the 4 Agreements did for me. He had a follow-up book it's called the Companion Book. And I'd recommend that you get that book. He made you basically take inventory of your beliefs. There's a great little book. You can still get it. It's called All About You. And basically it causes you, it just asks you a bunch of questions about your beliefs and your upbringing and what you were told a man is or a boy is, all these great questions to evaluate your belief system. And you can't change your belief system unless you evaluate your belief system. And so I thought, all right, if my beliefs run my behavior and my behavior caused my result, and I don't like my behavior or my results, it just seemed logical to evaluate my beliefs. And so in my book, what I'm trying to do is get you to evaluate, first off, what is a mistaken identity? How did you get it? And then what is yours? And then throughout the book, I just ask you questions to evaluate all this in order to change your mind about how you think about this whole process, plus how you think about you. And then magically, things change. I got a text this morning from a reader. She's on chapter 27. So I have a book, a lesson that you get for free from me if you want. If you buy the book, I have these lessons I put together. There's just, short video lessons, 5-7 minutes long. She wrote me, she goes, chapter 27, so simple, yet so profound. I wrote her back and I said, you think it's profound. It is simple, but you were taught to make it complicated. And so when I explain it simply and it uncomplicates it, you think it's profound when it's not profound at all. It's really simple. And it was chapter 27, let it go. And she thought, oh my, this is amazing. I go, it's not amazing. It's simple. It feels amazing because you were locked into this way of believing and thinking. When I break that apart, like somebody yesterday said, Doug, it's like she's been through a similar story as mine. She shared. We were on a call. She had been, I've done trauma therapy and all this stuff, and I'm doing really well in my life. But when I read your book, it really disturbed me. Like it went deeper than I'd ever gone before. But what was really cool about it, Doug, she said, it was like I went to the chiropractor. It was like all my vertebrae just got into a line. It's like each chapter's got me in alignment, shifted my vertebrae, and I was in pure alignment. And she thought, this is amazing. I go, thank you. It's not amazing. It's simple. But it appears amazing because what comes is, oh my God, it's amazing. And I don't take any credit for it other than the ability to assemble it, throughout this book in a way that it's simple, that anybody could let go of their past and have a better life.
Well, when letting go does sound simple. Of course it does. And I guess it is simple to a certain degree. Talk more specifically about that. Okay.
Good question. I'll turn to the book too. So when my mentor was telling me to let it go, and I kept refusing because I thought it can't be that simple, page 205. There's a few things that I did not understand about letting go. And so one thing is the way your mind works. So as I mentioned, your mind is this machine. And it's an automatic goal-seeking mechanism, like a scanner. It's scanning a target. It's like a torpedo trying to find its way forward. Two big mistakes I was making that most people make with the operation of their mindset is they spend way too much time thinking about the past, talking about the past, dredging up the past, and looking upon the past with negative emotions and thoughts. And the other mistake we make is that we worry about the future. We're using our imagination. We play out scenes and conflicts and problems before they ever happen, and they never do happen, rarely. And so we're putting stress on this machine because it doesn't work that way, right? And so one of the things I learned about letting it go is that to let it go, you have to forgive the past. Now, true forgiveness, and I didn't know this, but I love the idea, true forgiveness is forgetting. That's true forgiveness. The definition of true forgiveness is forgetting. And so I just decided to stop thinking about the past, and I was going to forget it. I'm not going to give it any more attention, right? I had to train myself. No, I'm not thinking about the past. No, I'm not talking about the past. No, I don't feel negative. I just kept training myself to stay in the present moment. And so I had to forgive my parents. I had to forgive their parents. I had to forgive, if I went back far enough, I probably have to forgive generations of people. Because, what I learned, I got from my father and my mother, my adopted. What they learned, they got from their parents. What they learned, they got from, it's just a generational, perpetual transmutation of these problems, right? So I had to forgive them. Then I had to forgive the people that mistreated me, because when I dug up the story on the people that sexually abused me, guess what? They had a story too. I was a 13-year-old boy, and I thought this man was this old man. Well, when I got the police records, he was 26. He was just a young man. And when I got his story, no wonder he did what he did, because he had his own story. So I was able to forgive the people that hurt me. And then guess what? I was able to forgive myself for all the mistakes I made because of that mistaken identity. And so it's all forgiveness. But one of the keys is you got to stop spending time in the past, because all you do is replay the scene, replay the thoughts, replay the emotion. It triggers you. You have the physical response, and you're stuck again. And then you talk all about it, and you go back in the past. And you might feel good temporarily by talking it out, but if you don't change your view on the past, your life is not going to change much. That was the idea.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, what's the alternative if you don't forgive, if you don't stop talking about the past and wallowing, as a lot of us do, right, in the past and the negative stuff that's happened to us? What's the alternative? To live a life that we're just stuck, right? We're in shame, we're feeling negative, we're feeling tense, we're feeling anxious.
I think, for me anyway, I think more so than ever, I think we have a responsibility to let this go, because we are mistreating ourselves, our children. We're passing along negative things. They inherit it. We often talk about our children, and a lot these days are being talked about here with the weather in New York, about environment and all that. We always talk about our children, but I think we have a responsibility. And even, listen, if I'm negative and angry and hurt and whatever, I'm going to mistreat other people. I'm not going to be able to love other people, truly treat them with love and good, and follow the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. It's hard to do when you were mistreated. Right. And you're angry about it, or you're hurt, or you're ashamed, or whatever. I think we have a responsibility, and I think the world is getting more difficult and more challenging than ever. I think there's something big coming. I think there's a transformation taking place, and I'm just trying to, one person at a time. If I can get through one person today that will just change like I did, because I'm doing a lot of good now in my life, and if I just get one disciple to follow me, and then they can get one, and then they can get two, and then they can get five. I think we have a responsibility for that.
Wow. Okay. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you, Doug? The book is called, again, Mistaken Identity, A Guide to Letting Go of a Past That's Holding You Back.
Yeah. And the best way is go to my website at dougdane.com, DANE. If you want to get the book, order the book through my website, because we'll get your email address, and then we'll send you an invitation, and we give you the book lessons. I basically take you through the book over 45 days. And we give that to you. I know if I just get you to do the book, Gabe, it's not about, I don't want you to buy the book. I don't even want you to read the book. I mean, I do. I want you to do the book. And I tell people, let the book work on you. And so I try to help with these lessons, but social media, Doug Dane or dougdane.com is the best way to get hold of me.
Awesome. Doug, as always, so inspired, man. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, you're doing great stuff. I really enjoy what you're doing, and I'm grateful to be on here. Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, we'll be in touch.
Good. Thanks.